2 by 2, 7 rows deep, and rolling up to the start-finish line. Looks like Asher going a little bit off track as the inside.
As they can. Saber making an amazing dive into turn 1, and electroshocks off. Eggful gets the move.
But MNU trying to take a move.
Big contact from 5 different punches.
Big incident with Snowdog, our leader.
As we head into town row, it's a big crash. It's a big crash between the two title contenders.
Welcome one, welcome all to round 2 of season 8 of the GT3 Championship as we bring you to the southern coast, all the ways down in South Africa to the Kyalami circuit, bringing ourselves in for a beautiful track and what is going to be poised to be an intense round as we take, I believe it is 33 cars through this beautiful circuit and challenges afoot from turn 1, turn 2, all the ways down to the infamous Cheetah Corner. We're going to be piloting ourselves through what is effectively a street circuit for these GT3s, and we're going to jump straight into the action as we get ready for qualifying. Our AMs are already heading out on track, and we're going to see what they can do to maximize this circuit.
But let's not forget, Plasma, it is a night race here. It's pitch black here in South Africa. You need to put on your high beams because you're just not gonna see anything with anything below those headlights. You really want to be alert on a night race because it makes racing much more trickier. You have darkness. You have all the drivers having to. You have to get around other drivers on this pitch black circuit, and it's just a lot more stress on these drivers.
100%. The limited visibility paired with some of the perilous corners rolling through the turn 2 through 5 sequence of corners. Very tricky if you are not comfortable with what is around you, as well as the infamous sunset corner, turn 6, a long, fast right-hand sweeper, as it looks like we are getting our drivers paired up and they're backing up through that final corner as they would be obligated to do. Remember, no passing and qualifying unless you are allowed by the car ahead of you. Well, all of our AM drivers are firing out of that final corner. We see the number 39 firing out with a train of cars at BMW and McLaren trailing behind as we see these first laps start up down into turn 1, not really a turn, flat out kink there, into the hard braking zone of turn 2, kind of clambering over that curb, setting the car up. Don't want to take it too wide and unsettle the car through turns 3 and then setting up for 4, getting the car turning for a very tricky turn 5, barbecue corner, as it was so aptly named, and it definitely makes me want to have a barbecue as we camp out, rolling down towards sunset where the sun has already set, typically blinding our drivers, but now they're hoping for any amount of light as they try to spot that apex, get the car all the ways in, and then out to the exit curb, set it back up to the outside, set up for clubhouse corner, bringing us to the S section, a very tricky and unforgiving sequence of the track where the curbs, a single bad hit can throw you offline, losing you seconds at a time, or maybe even ending your race into those walls that are very, very close as we head up to Lukop, which is the Lion's Head corner, our highest point of the track, getting a hard off-camber braking zone down straight into mineshaft. This downhill fast left-hander, turn 12 as you get set up all the way to the left-hand side immediately after, setting up for Crocodiles, a very open radius corner. We'll see a lot of overtaking opportunities down here as the 97 throws the car over the curbs and then gets opened up for Cheetah. This is a very infamous corner. That curb stay very, very wide of it, and it looks like it might have already bit the Ferrari in front, which is a very, very easy thing to do as you push the limits, trying to get all the ways up to that curb. Really unsettles you and really messes with your judgment as you try to get set up for turn 16 of Ingwe. And that will be the entirety of your lap. But it looks like those first laps are coming in. Adam Norlum looks like they have set that pace, but directly behind them, they also have the 212 George Shirami, who is chasing down that Honda with the little Porsche that could in a, well, this has historically been a Porsche track, so this is probably one of the drivers to watch in your M class.
Yes, and as you saw earlier, that is the first victim of tonight of the infamous Cheetah sausage curve. But anyways, we are moving on to qualifying. So far, it's looking like an interesting grid. I believe that last race it was Luis Gordon who took the win in Silverstone, but let's see who will take it out on round 2 here in the night in Kyalami.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting qualifying, as it's going to be a hard track to overtake at, but also if you do want to make a move, you have to be committed, get the car fully in and down along the inside, as it looks like George Shirami not having the best lap here, down about 1/10 through the first 2 sectors as they roll down to the crocodiles and rolling all the ways out. Bring the car all the ways over these curbs, open up, set yourself up for Cheetah and hit your marks. Really need to be focused as you get all the ways down onto that apex curve. So a very, very good Cheetah from George Shirami as Adam Norlum improves with a 42.4. Rolling out of the final corner, is George Shirami able to respond as we run down a very long run out of the final quarter to that start finish line? Does not look like it will be enough. It is an improvement to a 142.9, so only 2 AM drivers in the 42s, but it looks like Adam Norlum is already starting to stamp their authority, because they are sitting at another 1.5 improvement through that first sector.
Yeah, overall, it's Norlum with a strong lead, but looking at my radar, I see a driver of interest. That is Loie Carlisle in the number 935 GTR. They are currently 7/10 down on their current lap, and I believe that is the forecasted pole position time. Now keep in mind, this is a new driver and a new driver for Tig Gang Racing as well. So welcome to the grid, Miss Loie Carlisle.
Well, nothing more synonymous with a new driver in TGR coming in, since it seems that they're the first to sweep up anyone, and they're putting in a very, very strong time. First 2 sectors, they're up about a second. Previous lap was a 43.1, so they're on pace right now to set that AM pole and snatch it away from Adam as they get hard on the brakes for this crocodile section. Very open radius corner and missing that apex a little bit, but using all of that exit, are they able to put together that Cheetah corner? The 935 really pushing the limits, actually a little bit of a chip on that inside curb, really testing fate with that up through that final sequence. Is it going to be enough as they exit that final corner? It looked like it was a decent run out of the final corner, just a little bit of squirming, and yes, Mirski, I'm not even going to try. Loie Carlisle? Well, it's taking that AM grid pole right now, at least provisionally, as we run into the last 2.5 minutes. Everyone's going to be getting maybe about a lap or 2 laps when they cross that line, but that is going to be putting the pressure on Adam and also George Shirami, who actually has been knocked down to P4 because Oliver Renfield has snuck into that P3 with the Mustang. Well, a car that traditionally isn't one of the picks here, but looks like they're able to get that working on this AM grid, and it'll be really interesting to see if they're able to push that final couple of tenths to meet up to Loie Carlisle.
I mean, everyone must keep in mind that Loie Carlisle is a national class driver, so of course they won't be classified for AM class pole position. That still goes to Norlum, but it's very impressive to see what the rookie has with that GTR. It's just like 3/10 off of AM class pole. I feel like that's a pretty solid silver class time.
Absolutely, a very strong silver class time, and it'll be really interesting to see them, because it looks like Lewis Gordon is starting to threaten the pole position time here, as Adam has not been able to improve and has actually snuck into the pits now. So this 847 is looking to improve and actually steal that pole position, while Adam is not able to respond. Looking like not on a major improvement on this lap. Oliver Renfield also looking like a little bit of a snap as we got ready for this Cheetah corner here, but not many improvements from what I'm seeing throughout the grid. I do see the 67 on quite a decent improvement down the field. Looking to poise themselves up from P7, sitting at about a 2/10 gap up, but it looks like maybe had a little bit of a actually well put together section as they set up before Cheetah Corner. Looks like it was well put together once again. Are we going to get set up for this final corner? What's the run going to look like? Looking like they're possibly threatening up to P5, maybe even P4. So is that run strong enough for Snowdog coming out? I think it will be enough. It is an improvement up into P6. Not enough to steal away P5 from George, but it looks like they're going to be setting themselves up for another row of up on the grid. And looking like throughout the grid, no one's really able to improve right now. So I'm wondering if the tire pressures aren't really working out for some of our drivers, struggling to get the cars in a window, because I don't see many drivers, actually many of them even giving up before we really push into that final lap period for these AM drivers.
I don't think anyone is going to beat that lap time set by Norlem. That is Norlem guaranteed on pole position. The number 574 Honda leading all the AM drivers. However, all eyes are on Loie Carlisle, who is currently beating their personal best once more. I believe that while they are in national class, you want to get on top of that grid as high as you can, and they are making a great impression in terms of doing that, because they are currently set to be a long way ahead of Norlem and well into, I'd say front to mid pack of the silver class.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they filter out. It's finally banking as a 141.685, so we'll put them in a pretty strong position. Definitely a good case to put them into that silver class here, maybe even threatening the fringes of gold, seeing where everyone else filters out. That will be the most interesting part of it, because that's going to probably be what seals the fate for Loie Carlisle, to see where they're actually going to settle down at. But as we roll through here, looks like we have a couple other drivers just finishing up, and also our silver drivers also taking to the track, just seeing where they're going to be able to filter out to. Cooper is going to be looking for some kind of improvement here coming through the final corner. It is a fairly large improvement here from the number 97. Is it going to be enough to shoot them up the grid? Yes, it is. It will pop them all the way up into P7 as they finish out their qualifying. So a good effort on that final lap from the 97 BMW driver as we wait for our silver drivers. Currently, it looks like led out by Blade Wolf. Actually, a couple other drivers snuck in front of them, but the 142 looking to set their first lap as we trip across the line and set our first flyers for these silver class drivers. Remember, many of these drivers found their way up to the silver class working through that AM class, so you're going to see the progression. It's going to be quite a tight fight between some of these silver drivers and the AM drivers, but also on the opposite end of the spectrum, some of those silver drivers trying to make their case to stamp their authority into gold, push up and take that promotion, maybe even win the class and a championship with it. But of course, they need to make it through the qualifying here, as Blade Wolf needs to get through Sunset Bend here, getting that Aston Martin all the ways down to the apex, really throwing it in one of the most tense corners there through Sunset, as you have to throw the car and trust the downforce and pray that you're going to stick by the exit.
You're indeed right, Plasma, and I do want to let you know that the drivers to look forward here in the silver class include the likes of course, we have Blade Wolf Kagekyo, a veteran in the silver class, and a very strong player in that category. I would know, because I have previously raced with him when I was silver. But anyways, this 142 Aston Martin looks to be the one to look at, but he is under fire from the number 406 Lamborghini of Aras Volpes. These two, I feel like they will fight to the death in this championship. But one thing I really love about the silver class is that they're very chill. They keep it very respectful between each other. And I do want to add, they are not the only ones to look forward to. You have the likes of, I say, Jesper Swingley, Sadcat, and Flynn. Some of the silver drivers may show up, but at the moment, my eyes are on those two.
Yeah, the silver driver historically has been one of the most entertaining classes, pushing up to really kind of make a name for themselves, and also even kind of stretching now down to the expanded gold class, as we had a separation between our golds and pros. So that top end of the silver class, bottom end of gold, is probably one of the most exciting parts of the grid, with people really pushing to stamp their authority again, make a name for themselves, find out where they sit in things. And what Ores Volpez we saw in the GT4 championship prior to this was really threatening those golds and pros in the GT4s, throwing themselves into positions that seemed almost impossible. And of course, with a car that had quite a big disadvantage on the top end side of things, and they're managing to hold off everyone else behind them by quite convincingly even. But right now, it is looking like Ores Volpez trying to get all the ways up from P12 here, looking on a really big improvement here, up a second through those first two sectors as we head down the hill here, heading towards Mineshaft, go all the ways down into fifth gear, getting the car turned in and set up all the ways to the left-hand side of Crocodiles, getting the car hard on the brakes and through this curbing here. The Lambo, not known for taking curbs well, but it needs to push itself all the ways up to the inside curb here, because Ores Volpez is looking to challenge for that provisional pole position all the ways through the inside. Looks like it was decently put together, hard on the brakes and through the final corner. One final squeeze of the throttle. That's going to determine this lap for Ores Volpez as we get a final run out down onto that main straight, watching that delta bar, seeing where you're going to pop up to, and it's going to be a P3 for Ores Volpez. But looking throughout the silver grid, there's a couple drivers on big improvements, and one of those is Jesper Swingley, who has thrown down a 41.355, and they're going to start challenging the rest of the grid here. And look at that, we talked about the Porsche being one of the favored cars for this track, and well, sure enough, the silver's bringing in the Porsche and bringing that competitiveness to the front of the grid. But a couple other cars here, those Lamborghinis, also very competitive on this track, and it'll be very interesting to see what they can do, because I've seen some good times coming in from Sadcat, the number 13, not on an improvement right now, but I've seen some good sectors from them, and I really think they're going to be able to challenge for that provisional pole in this session as well.
That was an absolutely phenomenal lap time from Jesper Swing. They are 6/10, actually 6/700 even, ahead of Sadcat, who is the next silver driver in line. And it's going to be really hard for these silver drivers to knock that time down. I feel like Swingley has an upper hand now, especially because of, as you said, the machineries and the Porsche, very great around this circuit compared to the likes of the Lamborghini or the Aston Martin. But let's see if the other silver drivers can extract the most out of their own cars and maybe try and knock that Porsche off pole position.
Absolutely, and an interesting thing here is all these silver drivers are kind of in a pack here. It is nice to get the draft. The dirty air doesn't affect these GT3s too much. It does exist, but you are throwing yourself at risk of the driver in front messing up your lap. You need them to both perform and put down a very good lap, but also you're running the risk of them messing up, causing an incident, and ruining your lap if you have a good lap. But someone who hasn't ruined their lap is Jesper Swingley, who is now thrown out of 41.2. They were following that Lamborghini in the background there, a Sadcat. So the 13 towing around the 279 and giving them an even more dominant lap time here as they sit with a 6/10 gap to the next GT3 in the silver class. But taking out Jesper, you see a very close battle between Ores Volpez and Blade Wolf Kagakio. Those are two people that we mentioned. They have a long history of fighting each other, and they're going to be inseparable so far through this qualifying. But of course, it's going to be about who can usurp Jesper Swingley. And I think down in the background there, the 13 is on a very strong lap, up 6/10 through that first sector. So we're going to follow along them, see what they're able to produce by the end of this lap, really stomping over those curbs.
Sadcat on a mega flyer right now. They're currently 7/10, only 1/10 down on Swingley's personal lap time as they head into Leo Cup, and down the hill they go into Mineshaft. They do have the tow from the Aston Martin of Blade Wolf Kagakio ahead, so let's see how this will help their lap time. They're still 6/10 down, but I think it's going to be really close for Sadcat as they head to the final sector, though I believe they're kind of being hampered by Blade Wolf right now, so they're definitely bleeding time. They're now 3/10, so it's just really unfortunate for Sadcat. They do have the pace, but it's just the spacing as he almost runs into Kagakio, and Yes, I think Sadcat has to go for one more lap. That's just really unfortunate. They do have the pace, but they just got really unlucky with that bit over there.
Absolutely, and had a little bit of a deep moment into Lukop, which I think unsettled them for the rest of the section because they lost a very large amount of time, almost I think 3/10 going through turn 13 there, and then of course in the final corner bailing out after trying to really throw it into the braking zone of turn 16. Got a little bit too close to Blade Wolf and opted to throw away the lap and just really make sure that they maximize this session, not getting any penalties, and also keeping that car out of trouble, out of damage, and out of danger. But of course, now rolling through, they do need to nail the lap this lap with 30 seconds left. I don't think they get back to the start-finish line. So anyone starting up their laps here in the next couple of seconds here is on their final lap. But also, it looks like most of the drivers behind Ores Volpez here is going to be on their current final lap. And it does look like an improvement currently for the 406. And also directly behind that, 142 looking like they're on an improvement as well. So it's going to be a battle of the inseparable silvers. That Lamborghini power just powering down the hill hard over crocodiles and using a little bit of that curve, kind of playing a risk with that Lamborghini all the ways up to the inside of Cheetah. It looks like it was very well handled by the 406 into the final corner. And again, one final squeeze of power. Where are they going to be able to put themselves coming out of this final sequence? Looks like an improvement, and it will be an improvement to P3, so they do jump up in front of Blade Wolf, but Lee Carlisle is going to be sitting in P2 among those silvers, so maybe even trying to posture themselves up for a gold position drive, as the only person that is in front of them is Jesper Swingley, who's on a massive, massive gap from all the cars behind.
That was a stunning lap time. Those were stunning lap times from Jesper Swingley. They are far ahead of the silver class pole, with Oras only being 4/10 down. That's just huge. That's just massive. Let's see how Swingley will go on in the race.
Yeah, it will be very, very interesting to see. The Porsche is typically a more entertaining car to drive throughout the race. Of course, the rear engine layout does offer for some interesting moments if you are on top of that car, and you do need to run the car fairly risky around this circuit. It does want to swing around. I guess you could say quite familiar for Jesper Swingley, getting that rear end to swing around through some of these long sweeping corners. But of course, we now have our pro grid swinging around this track, starting up Gold Grid, Gold and Pro are going to be swinging around this track as we set up a nice gaggle of cars coming through the final corner here. So the pros may be taking something out of the Silvers playbook and not leaving the gap. They want to take that slipstream. There are a couple long straightaways here, so very important to maximize those, and now nothing helps more than a little bit of slipstream as we see the 73 of Sauce Dragon running down into turn 2, hard on the brakes and getting into that turn 2 sequence. But of course they have, a Lexus and a BMW behind, so no mistakes allowed from this 73, and we're gonna see where these pros can filter out after this first flying lap.
It's quite a train of cars in the Golden Pro class as compared to, let's say, the Amps and Silvers, where I'd say surprisingly compared to last week, they've kept themselves well spaced between each other. I mean, the only bit of kerfuffle we've seen was with I believe it was Sadcat with Blade Wolf, but again, our pro drivers making the most out of the circuit, which includes taking the slipstream, as we see Luke Packer in that number 286 Cabal Sim Sports BMW, following the tow of Sauce Dragon with a Mustang. No, that was the Lexus. That's their teammate. I believe that's Nicholas Zahn right behind them in tow as well. So really making the most out of the sim right here, these guys.
Absolutely trying to maximize everything that they can in the 26. A little bit deep into Clubhouse there. Not the best run through there from Yapton Tech. And it's going to be through the S's. You can see that Porsche actually struggling a little bit there. A tiny wiggle from that rear end, and it looks like we're going to be getting our first lap times coming in from these Gold Pro drivers. And the highest place driver, oh, that's Sauce in the 73, able to put down a 141.647. And we'll jump along with our pros on board, take us through a lap of this Kyalami circuit, because it is a true roller coaster ride as we get through a lap here. Running through that sector, or first sector, throwing the car left to the right, so back to the left. The weight transfer just tosses these cars around as we run through turn 2. This is on board with the number 15 Vasi Tigris, running through turn 3, 4, and then back into 5, getting the car all the way over this curve. The rear end just wiggling around a very, very hard spin and into the wall for the number 15. That's going to be a big damper on their qualifying, especially in these cold temps. It's hard to get the tires up to temperature, so it's going to be a challenge for Vasi to be able to try to get those tires into a window against another fast lap. But of course, they're going to head back out, try to finish it out. Christian Klippert and the 236 now heading through the S's with the Mercedes. A not conventional pick for this track here, but of course they're going to try to make it work. But that front engine layout of the Mercedes definitely does make it struggle through some of the longer corners here. Of course, at the same time, it does handle those curves extremely well, maybe offering a little bit of comfort when you roll over Cheetah curb, as we roll through Cheetah with the number 22. And it's going to be Kyalami who's going to be firing through that final corner, seeing where they're able to posture themselves. And it looks like a big improvement coming through the final section. Of course, aided by that draft of the McLaren, but it's going to be the fastest lap nonetheless, a 41.1. And it looks like the rest of our drivers are going to be trying to match that benchmark. But of course, Kyalami with that draft, that might have just further secured that pole position.
We head on board with Kyalami here into Kyalami. We head into turn, I believe this is turn 5. This is barbecue, going flat out until you have this long sweeping right-hander of Sunset. You dab on the brakes, just be patient, wait for that wait for the perfect moment to get that throttle down, get as wide as you can, as you hard brake into the clubhouse as Mooney tries to follow. I believe that is Parker Olsen's slipstream. Though that might turn into dirty air, that may pay against his favors as they head into the DSS. That was a slip from Mooney, but Mooney having it well held as they continue to ramp on behind the rear end of that number 74 Tigger McLaren coming into Leo Cup. That's a really tight hairpin, and then you power down. That is downhill, as wide as you can, almost touching the grass as they head into Mineshaft. This is turn 12, a long left-hander, followed by a hard braking into turn 13, which is the Crocodiles. You really have to take it easy. You have to get it as wide as you can without breaking the track limits. Easy to do here. Now for the infamous corner, the Cheetah corner. Mooney survives the Cheetah corner as they head into the final corner. I think they're slowing down for another lap, but that is a lap around Kyalami circuit.
Yeah, setting up to that final corner there through Ingwe, it looks like that we are going to be getting an improvement, but unfortunately setting up for the next lap, while Kyalami is setting up for their next lap. A good run down the main straight will give them a good setup for that next lap. Luke Packer looking to improve that 286 as well going into turn 2, and Yeptian Tech is trying to pilot that number 26. That Porsche not looking the most settled right now, but a big improvement from them currently through the first 2 sectors here, looking to shoot themselves up in with this pro grid and through Ingwe, the final corner here, firing it out. That Porsche using its excellent rear engine layout to power that traction down the main straight. It looks like it is a big jump from the number 26 up to P4. So Yeptian Tech is able to sneak the way up into almost that podium position for our Gold Pro qualifying. But of course, Jesper Swingley, with that very, very strong performance in qualifying earlier, is sitting in the front row start still as a silver driver. Well, Christian Klippert is going to be trying to pilot themselves up to that front row because they're on a massive improvement with that Mercedes currently through that first sector, challenging for the possibility for the pole position, but a big wiggle on that apex of Lukop and running down the mine shaft. Perhaps they're able to recover some of that speed back. It Looks like they were able to. Hard on the brakes, setting up for Crocodiles, rolling over a little bit of that inside curve. You can just see that front right bouncing around, getting the car back over to the left-hand side, open up for Cheetah, all the ways up to that apex curb, leaving a tiny bit of margin there. That might be a little bit of time as you get hard on the brakes for the final corner here, getting the car fired out and through. We have about a minute and 15 seconds of qualifying left. So all these drivers going to be on their final lap here, and it does look like Christian did get an improvement up to P5, but that margin left, I think, in that final sector did cost them the chance to get that pole position here. So they're going to have to bring that Mercedes around for a whole extra lap to try to challenge back at the front. But it looks like Kyalami also on an improvement, so that goalpost is going to further move into the negative for everyone else, and they need to see really big improvements from some of our drivers if they're going to take this fight to the 22.
That was really close, but not quite for Christian Clifford. It was down to that final sector, but Clifford couldn't find the time. Hopefully they can find more time on that section and improve on their lap time. But Daniel Taberner just made it at Racing Team Echo front row as they're 52 thousandths down on Mooney as the Golden Pro drivers continuously try and improve on their lap times. I feel like it's close, but I don't think anyone is gonna beat that front row start from Racing Team Echo.
No, maybe not, but Daniel Taberner's already trying to challenge for that front row. Of course, Kyalami is looking like they're trying to put down a faster lap. Rolling through this Cheetah section, using all of the track and then some of the grass all the way through the exit of Cheetah curb there through Ingwe. Are they able to get the good enough exit to power them to a faster time? It looks like a 41.130, and it's not going to be an improvement for our provisional pole sitter. So it's going to be the challenge coming in from the 83, the teammate. Of course, in different cars, BMW versus Lamborghini as we roll through Lukop. Daniel Taberner, the 83, fires it downhill for the one last time in qualifying. Currently sitting on a 3/10 positive gain through those first two sectors. Fire the car through mineshaft, tuck into that inside curb, hard on the brakes, get the car pinned all the way to the inside curb here, and it looks like that Lamborghini's responding to everything beautifully, throwing it all over the exit curb there, and get tucked up to Cheetah curb, and Daniel Taberner throwing everything into this lap all the ways up to the grass, hard on the brakes, and through one final corner of Ingwe, out of turn 16, squeezing that power down all of the exit curb. It looks like maybe not the best exit, but will it be enough? And it will be enough for Daniel Taberner, a 140.9, the only driver to sneak into the 40s, and a beautiful lap from the 83.
That was an absolutely rapid time from Taberner, 2/10 off of Mooney. That is just absolute dominance on top of the Racing Team Echo's own dominance on this grid Now, you and I have shared the front row once here in Kyalami. What do you think will be happening here?
Yeah, it's a very, very long run to turn one. It feels like it never, well, a short run to turn one in the kink, but a very long run to turn two, an unconventional cornering system there. Yeah, it's a very tricky one. You really want to hold that inside, but of course it does lead into a corner complex. So you can't tuck yourself all the ways up to that inside curve. You do need to leave a little bit of margin. And it's a battle of risk reward. Of course, you leave that inside open and someone might be able to send it up and take your nose away, take your line, and you're kind of SOL. But of course, you still need to set up that sequence afterwards. Otherwise, the car starting in your outside, they're always going to get a better run through that sequence. So it's a challenge. Our drivers have to do a very, very tough risk reward of deciding how hard they want to defend the inside and how much they're going to try to open up that run out. Because barbecue is a good passing opportunity. It's an off-camber, very tricky sequence of corner that rewards that confidence, rewards trusting that grip to be there. And truthfully, if you're the car on the outside, you oftentimes win. So I think we're going to see a very, very brave battle heading into turn one. It'll be a matter of who preps their tires best because these night conditions really, really make it a challenge to get those temperatures into the tires and set them up for that run through the first lap.
Can well agree on that, Kyalami. This is why I love Kyalami. That turn, technically a turn 2, 3, 4 section, but the first braking zone, I feel like it's it's anyone's game. You can slam it down the inside and have the position, but at the same time you can wrap around the outside and take the inside for that next corner. So it's really on who's the bravest, who's got the gusto.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, while it does offer options, those options and opportunities do lead to chaos. So, of course, throughout the mid pack, we have seen many incidents happen in that turn two section. We have seen drivers try to get a little bit too ambitious. We've seen three and four lied that have really caused issues or even just provided good racing. So, it'll be very interesting as we roll onto our grid. Check out our final grid and also the mix of drivers because we see a couple drivers that have snuck into unconventional spots as you would initially expect.
That is right, Plasma. We have Daniel Taverner, of course, on pole position for Racing Team Echo, but make that a Racing Team Echo front row start as Kyalami starting alongside in at number 22 BMW. Right behind, we have Jesper Swingley, the elephant in the room right here, a silver class driver in the top three, that number 279 Garage 42 on that podium position alongside Yap Jin Tech, another Porsche representing Leggy Too Fast in the number 26. P5 and P6, we have Sauce Dragon in that beautiful confuzzled livery Mustang, and alongside Luke Packer in the number 286 Cabal Sim Sports BMW. Behind is Packer's teammate Nicholas Zahn in the number 46 Cabal Lexus, starting alongside he was so close, but not quite. Christian Clippard in the number 236 Tig Gang Racing Mercedes AMG, starting alongside their teammate in P9, who is Vossi Tigris in the number 15 Porsche. And rounding off the top 10, our rookie in the TGR Nissan GTR, Loie Carlisle in that number 935 GTR. Now P11, we have Aras Volpez in the silver class in that number 406 Lamborghini, starting alongside Parker Olsen in that number 74 Taegang Racing McLaren. P13 is Volpez's direct rival Blade Wolf Kagekio in the number 142 Lycan Racing Aston Martin, starting alongside Sadcat, another threat to the championship in the silver class in that number 13 Lambo. P15, we have Elias Flynn in Mall Motorsports at number 77 Boatley, starting alongside I believe that is our pole sitter in the number 21 Autosports number 574 Honda. That's Adam Norlim, starting alongside Luis Gordon of Racing Team Echo in number 847. Behind them, we have Oliver Renfield in the number 65 Ford Mustangs, who is starting alongside George Cerami in the number 212 Porsche. Rounding up our top 20, we have the number 67 of Snow Dog in Garage 22, starting alongside Cooper Otter in number 97 Bimmer. And then we have I feel like that's another new name here. That's Leon Van Steen in the number 187 White Point Racing. In number P23, we have number 24 of Garage 42. That is Charter in a Lamborghini, starting alongside number 42 Sierra Thomas of Racing Team Echo. Unfortunately, those two are rock bottom in the silver class. Anyways, going over to JPEG Fox in the number 12 Aston Martin, a solid driver in the AM class, starting alongside the number 78 Coda Wolf in that Nissan GTR. P27, we have Blue Shark E-Racing's Wolfen Ravenoff in that number 529 Mustang, alongside Dan Marer in the Garage 42 McLaren number 260. P29, we have Fluffy White Point of White Point Racing in the number 39 Ferrari, a rare find on this grid, starting alongside P30's Sif Harvey. Now P31, we have Lee Hamster, I believe that's another new name, and P32 is Manuel Benavides in the number 5 McLaren, and I believe P33, Jeremy Dalton, will round off our grid.
Yeah, and a very, very exciting grid as well. As we roll down, we have a couple of our drivers already setting up, really maximizing their tires, single file through sunset. You see those brake lights illuminate our drivers dragging those brakes to bring some heat into the carcass of those tires, trying to really get some kind of energy. The very, very dark part of this racing calendar. The night has thrown itself on this track, and through that we lose the energy that the track retains from the sun and the heat that beats down and transfers into those tires. So it's very, very tricky to get those temps up. We're going to see a couple of our drivers maybe even throw some weaves and just trying to get something in to the carcass of those tires, into the surface. And well, by the time you roll into turn 2, it's going to be very obvious who nailed it and who got it wrong, because that very heavy braking zone, very grip limited medium speed corner, really, well, it exposes who got that tire warming right. And we roll down in second half of the lap here as we head down the hill. It's going to be kind of crunch time for a couple of our drivers. And of course, as we get closer and closer to that finish, once we have that grid up, those drivers in the back maybe not going to get as much of an opportunity to put heat in those tires. And as they have to get back up, form up in the grid, and it looks like we might already be setting up for that final grid sequence.
It's going to be a very interesting race start for sure. I mean, not only because we have the two, this is shades of Mercedes, the Silver War back in the late 2010s from 2014 with Hamilton and Rosberg. These two are gonna go at it at each other. However, not only that, but we also have Jesper Swingley. It will be interesting to see how their strategy will fold when they're high up. They're P3 for Christ's sake. They're way ahead of the silver class. So will they play it safe, or will they maybe go play the hero or go for an opportunistic move?
Absolutely. Well, what the Civil War didn't have was different equipment, because we have Lamborghini versus BMW. Jesper Swingley in that silver Porsche as the modern age Max Verstappen here as we roll down, get the cars ready to line up through that final green light. You can see it illuminating on the track, waiting for our driver to fire away, and it is green as we get ready to go down through that first kink of turn 1. It looks like Jesper Swingley got a very, very good launch, and also looks like another Porsche. That's going to be a chance for Kyalami to fall back here. 3 wide in the turn 1, 4 in the back. And it looks like our driver's able to get through cleanly, but 4, 5 wide in the back as chaos erupts in the midfield. It looks like we're still green. A couple of drivers maybe slow as they take themselves cautiously. A little bit of contact through barbecue. The 236 taking a bit of contact. And I think
We have
that's
a red
couple
flag.
cars stopped there.
Red flag.
And then, yes, a red flag. Yep. Absolutely. So too much chaos came through that 4-5 wide sequence as our drivers have to reset, re-rack, but chaos and damage everywhere through the track. Look at this, 3-4 wide, multiple rows deep. Where does this contact start? It looks like a possible, oh, it looks
My
like the
goodness!
Acura and the Bentley. Who was that? It was Elias Flynn and I believe Adam Norhalim. So the back of the silver pack and our AM leader actually coming into contact, causing a ton of damage through the rest of that mid pack.
Now keep in mind, the last race in Silver Soul, we did have a red flag too, so I hope these drivers get their act together so that we can finally have some green flag racing. But that was a really messy race start. That was just chaos everywhere. I saw the cars behind them. They were going like 3-4 wide. It's just everyone trying to fight for position. But unfortunately, it's too much people, and it turns into a Carmageddon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a bit of a free-for-all, a slugfest almost, to try to get through that first sequence of corners. And we talked about opportunities offering options. And while those options and opportunities, it only causes more chaos, because that means drivers have the ability to put themselves side by side. And of course, seeing 2, 3, 4 rows of 3-4 wide, and you can't say that there has been more options and opportunities than turn 1 right then and there. And our drivers definitely all were taking that opportunity, and it resulted in all the expected chaos. There is enough space to get through there, but it's very tricky when you're that car on the outside to know that there's going to be 2 cars on your inside. And of course, being on that inside, knowing that you have to hold it extremely tight, even though you might get thrown over a curb, it seems easy when you're outside of the cockpit, but it is an immense challenge to leave enough space and, of course, not just immediately concede that position.
I do gotta say, I'm looking at the chat right now. I really feel for the stewards over here right now, because they have to go through another red flag incident and make their own decisions on the incidents. But what was my point again? Again, yes, I don't think they'll hear me, but I do want to remind those drivers that while heroics are fun, while you can make bold moves on lap 1, you can. I don't think races are never won. Races rarely get one on lap 1 unless you're really brave and make a move that is clean, and the highlight on clean move. You have to make sure your nose is pointed the right way around when you're making heroics. But please, let's heroics.
Well, you mentioned clean, but I don't think this grid will be any cleaner than as it sits right now because there's going to be plenty of damaged cars as we head through that first lap, I expect once again. So challenges are afoot as we get our drivers set up and heading towards the end of our gridding period here. Of course, everyone going to be extremely anxious after seeing the start of that race. And the mid-pack chaos, it did provide, once again, we did send out a little bit of a warning that it was going to be around that silver grid, and that's exactly where that chaos started as we roll out here for our drivers to try to set up those tires once again and providing a little bit more of a challenge. Of course, now everyone's had a chance to see where their tires ended up, see if they had enough grip, and we're going to see our grid probably compacted even more because people are going to know what they need to adjust to get those tires temperatures right, and more people are going to be closer to the limit. That's of course more opportunities, more options, and we saw what caused that on turn 1 lap 1 this time around. Well, of course we're going to see what happens on this second attempt.
I do want to point out, now that Jesper Swingen knows that they have the straight line acceleration on that Porsche, will they be more opportunistic and try to fight these gold drivers? I believe so. I think they might get ahead as soon as they can, but if those drivers eventually get faster, I think Jet Swingley might have to think twice and not defend too hard, because it might compromise them in the long run as the silvers close in.
Yes, but they need to try. It's very, very important to get in front of this track. Track position is kind of king here as you roll through, and those Porsches don't have the most insane top speed relative to the cars around them, so they need to make sure they use that, well, that lightweight, naturally aspirated flat 6 engine where it is strongest, and of course that is in the low end running off of the line here. So I think we're going to see another big challenge coming towards Kyalami. I don't think Mooney is going to fall back as hard during the start as they've learned their lesson from the first attempt here, but it's going to be a very, very interesting battle to watch, and I think Kyalami is going to be, well, watching that rear view mirror more than what's in front of them. You expect that they won't be sending it on Daniel, but of course they need to still make sure that they aren't sent themselves.
I mean, rule number 1, never hit your teammate. I hope it stays that way between these two. What was the saying in McLaren? Oh, papaya rules. Even. I hope that they sort it out between each other as optimal as they can, because these two, I feel like these two are gonna clash often with the pace they're at.
Yeah, and of course, you do expect a clash from Yappian Tech, who's in that 26. You saw them, they were audacious and ready to send it around the outside through turn 2. Well, it's going to be a matter of confidence, bravery, and gusto, everything in between, and seeing if Yappian Tech is able to send it up from P4. Maybe they're able to end up from the second row to P2. It is going to be another tense run up to the line. You see the drivers all illuminating the track from the start to the back, all the way 16, 17 rows deep. Plenty of cars to fill up this circuit and plenty of chaos that is afoot through this first sequence of corners as we roll through the final corner. One more time, getting the drivers 2x2 ready to launch and release these V8s, V6s, and everything that fills this grid. Once again, the red light is illuminated, holding our drivers afoot, ready to go for that green light to launch us, and we are green and away with another race, and it looks like Kyalami with another poor start, and it looks like Jesper Swingley has gotten an even better one, possibly a chance into turn 1 as we go in, and it looks like possibly a move from the Ford in the back there, but Sauce Dragon thinks better of it. A little bit of contact.
Oh my goodness.
It looks like the 26 struggling, and another contact in the further back part of the grid, but I think our drivers are able to keep it clean, just small contact.
No, famous last words.
One on the inside of turn 4, and it looks like a Lamborghini is around. I'm not sure who that was.
That was Volpez.
Louis Carlisle also trying to get through. We have drivers that have dropped back dramatically. It looks like Cooper Otter is maybe dropped back as well. Lewis Gordon, 847, looking for some kind of gain through the grid here, but several of our drivers pushing up and down the grid. I see changes afoot everywhere. The biggest thing is Jesper Swingley was able to get in front of Kyalami. We see a 2x2 going into the S's there. The Aston Martin, I believe it, George Army backing off there, and Wolfen trying to get a push up to one of the other cars directly in front of them there, but falling back the grid, it looks like Cooper Otter fell back along with Charter, it's Harvey as well, and Ores Volpez we did see spin out very, very early on, so a bit of chaos for many of our drivers, and of course one of our heavy hitters in the Silver Championship, that's going to be a massive swing.
That was an insane lap one, but may I direct your attention to the top three, because Jesper Swingley is throwing hands, and there's a full course yellow, but I think, yeah, that's Jesper Swingley getting past Taberner. That's Swingley for P1, but I think they conceded. I think Swingley bumped Taberner a bit, and that made him went wide. So Swingley, of course, having to concede. But anyways, we have the full course yellow, which may pay into advantage for Jesper Swingley because they do have the acceleration of that Porsche. Can they go for P1?
It'll be an interesting thing indeed, but of course, Jesper Swingley likely not clearing in front of Daniel Taverner, so having to concede once that full course yellow came out here. But it's going to be an interesting. Actually, Daniel Taverner, I think, letting by Jesper Swingley. Oh, actually, I think we are back and released off of our code 50 here. So it looks like an opportunity for P1 here as Kyalami is able to get around the outside. The contact to the outside and another contact over the curb there. We're 3 wide in the barbecue here, but a big swing.
Chaos.
26 is off as we roll through. Kyalami moves up from P3 to P1. Daniel Taberner dropping back a position as well. And Sauce Dragon was able to sneak through to P3. So Jesper Swingley from P1 to P4 off of the restart.
That's the last thing you want. Jesper Swingley knocked out the podium places, but they still have the silver class lead to fight for. So I think at this point, Jesper Swingley just has to play smart. We saw what they're capable of, but unfortunately, it looks like they'll have to wait. But Jesper Swingley looking for a move in Luke-up, perhaps, but it's not quite there yet. Swingley hanging on to the rear end of that Mustang of Sauce Dragon. But at the moment, I think it's better to just drive off and not push yourself too hard.
Yeah, but of course, that's easier said than done as we roll through, checking out some of these incidents through the back of the grid here. Down into turn 2s, it looks like Sauce Dragon was under threat from, I believe that's Vossi, as we roll through this turn 3 sequence. There's that little bit of chaos and a big bump over the curb there, coming to barbecue and a big contact. That's what set the 26 wide and almost collected by one of the BMWs in the background there. I believe that was Luke Packer in the back that almost got collected, and Kyalami is now fallen behind. Or sorry,
that's
not
Sauce Dragon.
Behind. That's up into P1 there. Sauce Dragon, it's labeled up in front of them, but that is them in the Mustang directly behind, a couple cars back fighting with Sauce Dragon. So our timing and scoring tower is being thrown in all sorts of whack as our drivers are just trying to fit through. Daniel Taberner defending into turn 2, able to hold that P2 off, but it looks like into sunset there's going to be a threat coming in from Jesper Swingley coming around the outside, and directly behind Nicholas Zahn also trying to make a move in the background there. Vossi Tiger filing up to the inside of Clubhouse. Are they able to get the run as the Lexus is trying to put the power down? And I think a moment in the back with the 212, George Army, who's had an incident coming off the outside there as our cars try to file through, avoiding the chaos. George Suami is very slow as the rest of the grid files through. The GTR on the inside is going to cause some more pain to George, and a bunch of damage now for several of our drivers. Some of our drivers up like Sierra Thomas and White Point in the 39 Ferrari, up 14 and 15 positions respectively.
I mean, this is Kyalami. You gain some, you lose some. You have to be really smart when it comes to racing, because you may have moments like where Sierra just slipped through amidst all the chaos, but you could also have moments where it can lose out. As we can see, George Arame way too wide, and that is just contact but I believe that is Luke Packer. So that's just how the tables turn here in this race.
Absolutely, but Khalid Mooney, you can see, is starting to be put under threat by Daniel Taberner in the background there. Parker Olsen also looking to make some kind of a run down into turn 2. Looks like sitting a little bit too far back to make a move on Christian Clippert there, but a big train coming from the top 8 here. Every one of our drivers separated by less than a second as we throw through a little bit of movement coming in from Christian Clippert. I think that's going to pull Parker a little bit closer, but it's not going to be enough to make a send. You need to be side by side if you're going to make something work into Sunset here, but it does offer the opportunity for Parker to get nice and close as we see Leon Van Steen is with the Porsche coming out of barbecue. The 187 looking like they're trying to recover
Big
from
crash.
a little bit of a moment, and a moment up down the grid, I believe. Yes, the 26
that's
slow in the
Gentech.
wall. So it looks like a bit of an issue from the 26, who's already had a nightmare of a race, mostly to no fault of their own. It looks like they tried to get a move around the outside of Sunset. We did say you had to be side by side here. So is the 26 able to get something moving? They are quite confident on around the outside, but a big moment for the 42 that sends them into the door. The 26 and the worst fate for Yinya. Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
It's been a nightmare for the 26, just trying to get through this grid. Tech has not been able to catch any break. Aside from one curb strike, they have been taken out multiple times and are not able to finish this race without significant damage. As we see Blade Wolf Kagakio, who's trying to limit the damage, as Sierra Thomas and Sadkid have been able to trot up the road and get away a little bit further out of turn 16. Luke Packer now trying to chase down. I believe that is Sierra Thomas ahead, and it will be an interesting battle here. The two front engine machines struggling with front grip as we roll through another lap, ticking the laps down. Of course, that 42 was responsible for that contact with the 26, so a good chance that there is damage on that Mustang, and that's going to open the door for the 286 to try to make a move here.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I do have to agree. I think that was more on Sierra Thomas going a little too deep on the inside. But you know, you make risks, but sometimes those risks can go out wrong. Like in the case of Gentech, who unfortunately lost out big time. I think they are out of this race, if not being in the pits for a long deal of repairing.
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be a significant damage. I mean, that's the fastest real corner of the track. Of course, there's a little bit faster, but that's the fastest one where you're really pushing the limit. And Adam Norhulm, Adam Norhulm stopped, and in the pits, that was our AM leader, our pole position. So what happened to the Acura there? It looked like they were in the wall behind maybe even one of the barriers. That's a very significant change.
Oh, that's a big shakeup for the AM class lead. I believe that takes Sarami up into the lead with I believe that is Coda Wolf fighting for P3. So this AM class race has just shaken up big time.
Absolutely, but of course we're seeing the 935 of Louis Carlisle looking like they're going to push a move on Jesper Swingley into turn 2. Also looking for a move, and we can see that Porsche's performance in the low speed, trying to hustle that Mustang around a big burbling V8 underneath the hood of that bright blue machine there. It slows down through the low speed that offers the opportunities for Jesper, but this is where the Mustang thrives, on those straightaways, but then tucked back into the corners. It looks like Jesper pushing the 279 through, looking for an opportunity to the inside of Clubhouse, but that's going to be shut down, and Jesper has to wait as they get through the traction zone here of turn 7, running through the S's, Sauce Dragon just trying to hang on for dear life to that podium position, and it looks like Jesper is going to back off just a little bit, set up that exit as the Mustang throws it in a little bit harder on entry. That might open up an opportunity through Luke up here. It looks like Jesper trying to push to the inside, but it's going to be Sauce Dragon wiser to that. And the Alexis behind looking to harvest an opportunity here. Nicholas Zahn is licking their lips, waiting for an opportunity. And that Lexus now stretching its legs down the run to Mineshaft into Crocodiles. And Jesper's gone from the attack to the defense. And now Nicholas Zahn looking for a move. And they're under attack from Bossy Tigers as well.
I mean, it's just that's just your average train. If you that's wiggling off. Oh no, that is our silver class leader in Cheetah. We have 3 down in the Cheetah corner. We have 3 victims in the Cheetah corner. Oh my goodness! But unfortunately, that just drops Swingley down into the reins of Sadket.
Absolutely. That is unfortunately the fate that comes in with that cheetah curb running through that apex. A little bit too hard of a curb strike, and it looks like a couple drivers possibly just tucking up a little bit too much. And it looks like a McLaren, I believe that is Parker, and I didn't catch who that was in the back.
That was Sadket.
Sadket, yes. So a big moment for several of our major heavy hitters coming through. That drops Swingley outside of that battle for that podium position. But of course, they're still leading the silver battle with, well, paired up with the other cheetah curb victim of Sadket, sitting at about a 1-second gap in the back. It looks like they're going to be struggling with each other for the rest of this race. So kind of filter out what that silver position's going to well, that silver win is going to look like. But Sauce Dragon now with a little bit of relief. They have fallen behind Vossi Tigris and Christian Clippert, and I do think there's a good chance there might have been an incident for that 73 as we roll up into Lukop once again, and it looks like big moment for Daniel Maurer, which is going to be at the 260 McLaren. I believe that was in turn 5 that we had an incident. The Garage 42 McLaren having a big moment coming through, and I believe another victim of our battles here coming through turn 2, who directly behind that is going to be one of the Mustangs. That's Wolf and Foxdale's Mustang there directly in front, I believe.
Oh, he caught the curb.
Unfortunately, yes. So the track, the night is really biting everyone. The lack of visibility. These curbs require a very bit of high amount of finesse to try to get through this circuit, and I think just a couple of our drivers, few millimeters to the left or to the right, are just struggling with keeping the cars fully stable, as some of these curbs love to launch cars.
I mean, that's Kyalami for you. Like, it's really an unforgiving track, even more when it's a night race. You can't see a lot of things unless you have high beams on here. And it's just taking out a lot of our drivers here. You have lots of incidents going here and there, and again, I really feel for the stewards. They're gonna have a really busy day on the office after this race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very, very tricky day for our stewards here. Of course, a red flag, plenty of incidents here, but of course, it also mixes up the grid, providing good battles here. Christian Clippert is trying to battle their way up for this overall podium. The number 236 really putting the pressure on the rear end of Vossi Tigris, as you can see that tiger striped paint on the rear end of the Porsche. The 15 just struggling through Lukop once again, and that's going to open up the opportunity now for the Mercedes to get a run down the hill here, rolling through turn 15 and maybe close up that gap. I don't think it'll be a battle on this lap. Sauce Dragon also trying to fire their way up into this battle here, and you can see through our timing tower all these orange gaps. Every one of our drivers is in striking distance. If there's any kind of mistake from the drivers in front, I think an incident in the back with possibly Orez Volpez once again. I see some moments going back for the 406, and it looks like maybe sneaking through from that incident. I'm not 100% certain, but it is a lot of damage on the front end for that 406, who is really going to struggle all the way to the pit window. 9 minutes till the pit window opens. This is only the first 10-15 minutes of this race.
Yeah, it's just utter chaos. I did not realize how much time has breezed by as well as we look into, I believe that is Volpez going on the inside of Sadket, clipping the curb, and that's just contact. So I think there was just a little bump because Volpez got on that curb and it just pushed them wide into Clodavel's way, but no harm, no extreme harm, no extreme foul. And that is Olsen, that's Olsen that spun.
Oh, the chaos that's through barbecue there. That's turn 5, a very, very tricky corner. That's when we outlined that you have to mount the curb correctly if you want to get through there fast. Another sequence, we got to mount the curbs through the S's. There's Vossi Tigris throws it through, but Parker Olsen coming through that turn 2 sequence. This McLaren not the most comfortable with some of these curbs, hard on the brakes, and I think actually just maybe a little bit too overzealous on the throttle.
Oh my
too
goodness.
much curbing on the exit. Dips a tire to the grass, backs it into the wall. Very minor damage, I have to imagine, from that low speed contact, but the Knight, you have to imagine the Knight is playing most of the chaos here. So our driver's not able to spot their marks consistently, and it's really pressuring them to have no mistakes. The focus from these drivers has to be A tier and maximizing every possible apex. Of course, each curb having its own challenge that you need to perfect. But Christian Clippert now trying to make a run onto our podium again, maybe offering an opportunity on Vossi Tigris, but from about half a second back, I'm not sure the gap is small enough, so I think it's going to be another lap safe for Vossi. But you see that Lexus in front, very, very strong on the straights, not offering many opportunities for the Porsche, but of course, historically not the best on tires, so we might see that Lexus back up into this P5 or P4 battle, and that could offer a lot more excitement here as, again, the 236 continuing to pressure the rear end, and a big slide from Christian Clippert, well held, as we look at the rear end view of that 15 Porsche TGR car. And of course, directly behind Sauce Dragon has a perfect view of this battle and would have seen that massive slide, been wondering if they needed to back out and get ready for an accident.
I feel like the only way to get past that Lexus is to just send it into the corners, man. Like, that thing has a lot of top speed, so you don't have a chance in the slipstream. But once those tires are down, as you said, that's gonna open up a chance to try and hang around the outside or just send it down the inside. In this case, I believe that Tigris is closing in on either of those options.
Yes, but we're speaking of people closing in. Daniel Taverner is closing in on Kyalami, so it looks like there might be a chance for Racing Team Echo to have a little bit of infighting. You talked about the Silver War, but what about the Blue War, as we see two of our cars, our two leaders, running away from the pack 6 seconds back? They can afford to lose a little bit of time as they battle with each other, and that Lamborghini is closing ever so slightly on the BMW, and that gap's going to keep getting just tighter and tighter, as we know that Daniel Taverner was able to edge out Kyalami with a little bit in qualifying. It does have a little bit of the edge, but we'll see what they're able to muster throughout the later phases of this race. Currently sitting at maybe a 10th faster on their fastest lap. Looks like they're going to have a real challenge set out for them, as Elias Flynn, the 77 Bentley, who we saw in that first attempt at a start, is now coming under pressure from directly behind. That's Orez Volpez. This is a battle for the silver podium. Actually, not the silver podium, though. This is the lower edges of the silver class. That's how far Orez has fallen with that damage, but Orez powering through with that damage for the next minute or two, maybe 1 or 2 laps, depending when that pit window opens, to try to get that Lamborghini in for service, because that front end is not looking good at all.
I think it will take quite some time for Volpez to be in the pit lane when it comes to fixing that damage. But at the moment, Volpez carrying on quite nicely. At the they are like 1, 2, 5. They're like P6, which doesn't shout a lot, but at least they're still in the fight somehow. They're still bringing in some decent points. So that's what matters for him. That's what matters for Volpez. Just damage control.
Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to maximize what they can. There's plenty of chances for opportunities. There's plenty of mistakes that can happen. We're seeing everyone that is just causing massive losses in time just by little mistakes, clipping curbs a little bit too hard. So, of course, just staying in it with mistakes completely knocked out of the equation might offer an opportunity back into that silver podium. But I do believe going hard on the brakes through the crocodiles here may be an incident, as we see the BMW, the 22, trying to sneak past one of the Mustangs.
Whoa,
and the Cheetah, and that move's not on as the 69 Mustang gets turned around. That's Dalton who got spun around by, I believe that was, I cannot find who the 22 was, but that was a clumsy incident. I believe actually that was our leader, Mooney. Yes, because Mooney's fallen behind Taverner. So a very, very tricky incident for our leaders, and that's made a big change for our lead battle here, because Taverner was really pushing up to Mooney, and maybe even some front damage for the 22.
Yeah, that's just gonna be bad for Mooney, because you have that back marker in the way, and they were just trying to get by as fast as they can, but unfortunately that corner had to be Cheetah, and I mean, two rarely go into one there. As we look into a replay, I believe that is Sierra Thomas alongside George Cerami. So I wonder what happened here. The Mustang normally with great straight line speed. So so I think Cerami's gonna dive down the inside. Cerami with a really brave move down the inside. I think, oh, that's just, I don't know. It looks, it's hard to tell there, but I think Cerami was a bit too optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to judge when you're in the cockpit here, but our drivers are doing their best to judge it through this darkness. There's still pressure actually down to number 15. It looks like they're under deep pressure from Sauersteigen, as Christian Klippert actually, I think, stuck past the later or further up the grid. Elias Flynn also is still under quite a bit of pressure from our silver pole sitter, or actually, I believe, no, sorry, that was not our silver pole sitter, but fighting for their life. And this is where you can see Vossi Tigris has fallen behind Christian Klippert here. It looks like that they're able to hang on to that Mercedes quite nicely here. We'll see what the 236 is able to muster through Sunset. We saw a big scare a couple laps ago from the 236, but it looks fairly committed from our Mercedes driver, now trying to chase down Nicholas Zahn. And we talked about that Lexus likely falling off and pulling back with that tire wear. And of course, we're entering the final 8 minutes of the first half of this race. So that window might be opening up. A big slip from the 236, who's able to hang on to it. Maybe hanging on to a little bit of time loss to the 46 directly in front of you. Hit up into Lukop once again. Down the run into Mineshaft. Looks like the Porsche was able to get a little bit closer, but that Mercedes is going to stretch its legs with that massive 6.2 liter V8 running down the hill, tucking up and even compressing all the ways onto the ground through Mineshaft there, trying to get away from Vossi Tigris. But this is just the gap that exists at the front of the grid here. A single mistake looks like it can drop you 2, 3, 4 positions. So this needs to be perfection from the Mercedes driver if he's going to catch all the ways up to Nicholas Zahn ahead, because that Lexus right now has stayed completely mistake free.
I mean, these two Taycan cars have to really work together in order to try and get past that giant wall that is down, making that car as wide as it can be. As we see, Swingley had just gotten past Sauersteigen, so Swingley growing their lead once more in the silver class and running away from Sadcat, I believe. As we see them head into the first few corners, yes, that is going to be a huge advantage coming to Swingley's way. As we see JPEG Fox, one of the first drivers coming into the pit lane.
Yeah, so of course that pit window opens at the 40-minute point of the race. JPEG Fox, the number 12, rolling their way into the pits here. We actually see one of the other Mustangs rolling out through the pits. I believe that was, I think, Renfield that just came out of the pits. The 22 of Kyalami now maybe measuring up. This might be the time to take that pit stop with a possible front damage from that contact earlier in the race, maybe even opening up a gap between then and Daniel Taberner, and that will maybe open up a window to get back in front. Of course, we see Oliver Renfield coming out in front of a little bit of traffic here, so this is going to be a little bit of shenanigans as we run through out of barbecue. A couple of our drivers having to navigate our way through traffic. Snowdog looking for a possible move on the Oreo labeled Mustang, running up the grid, up the hill into Mineshaft, or up into Lukop, as it looks like it's Dalton that is under significant pressure. The number 69, who we saw involved in an early incident, is looking to also charge their way back up. The Porsche Snowdog looking quite mighty on the traction there. The Mustang struggling a little bit more. This could be an opportunity for Snowdog to send it up the inside of Jeremy Dalton, running through and all the ways up to the rear end. Snowdog backing out to avoid an incident, but that's going to open up the back side of the corner for Wolfen, and contact from Snowdog, and they're going to have to wait up. They are waiting up for Dalton because of that contact and a couple other drivers sneaking through. But goodness, danger everywhere on this track, as it looks like the Porsche is waiting up the Mustang, able to sneak back in front through Cheetah here. But Wolfen, I believe, that snuck through there, was in a massive tunnel of danger, as they had to filter through a spinning car on the inside, and Snowdog slowed up on the outside.
I mean, what did I say? Be careful when you make a move here, because it's just really dangerous here. As they make contact once again. Oh my goodness! I think, oh my, it's just getting more chaotic. It's just chaos, utter chaos between these guys. But I think everyone just needs to keep their chill down because they're not gonna survive if they're driving like this.
No, they're not. Snog with continuous contact there is very, very sketchy. I thought that we were going to see a car get turned into the wall on the inside there, going through barbecue. Possibly significant damage there, as I think the Mustang got past Snowdog of Renfield, maybe. No, I think that's another one of the Mustangs. And it looks like actually Snowdog right back on the back of Dalton. So it looks like Snowdog has the pace. It's just staying out of incidents here. Something that we've seen so many of our drivers struggling with to keep it clean. Well, Snowdog is falling victim as well. Oliver Renfield, who we did see come in for a pit stop, is now looking to charge back up as we head into Lukop. Hard on the brakes, not looking for an opportunity. There's Snowdog hard on the defense all the way. So that white line on the inside, rolling down mine shaft. We saw that the 67 was strong coming down here, very far on the inside through. Is it going to be contact?
No,
They're
not
shuffling them to
again.
the edge
Oh,
of the
that is
track.
close. That is Snowdog getting past with a little bit of a squeeze, but I believe that is Dalton trying to get past, but not quite, as Renfield might have a chance to go through. Not yet, but that was a risky move by Snowdog. That paid off quite well, as you see. I believe that is a Ferrari of Fluffy White Point coming into the pit lane.
Yeah, I believe a couple of our other drivers opting for pits. It looks like further up the grid, most of our top 10 are looking at considering that pit stop window, but Oliver Redfield looking at considering an opportunity to get past, but Sauce Dragon, Jesper Swingley, and I believe that's a McLaren further up the grid. I think that was Parker Olsen, our only McLaren that was sitting in that top end of the grid, also collected. So Jesper Swingley filing through here, and I believe, yeah, so Vossi Tigers sneaking by. I think that was not Parker. Parker having a different
that was a back marker.
Yeah, so oh, Jesper going deep and hitting Benavidez, and Sauce Dragon as well collecting Swingley. So that's going to be major damage for our Porsche, our silver leader, who's been performing so well, but unfortunately, double contact for them. They're going to file back up. Calhoun Mooney is in the pits right now, as well as Sauce Dragon opting to repair that damage that they may have collected. But chaos throughout this grid, every single lap, just surviving will get you bucket loads of positions right now, but everyone is just struggling to keep the cars straight, keep them alive. Cooper Otter now trying to take a run down and catch back up to Christian Clippard, who we saw up in front of the grid earlier chasing up. I think that they're coming out of a pit stop here, as well as I think a couple of our other drivers, Sad Kid and Sauce Dragon, of course, in the pits right now. So we're going to see a lot of gaps shuffling, changing. Calhoun Mooney now filing out and filtering out directly into traffic, though. So this might play into Daniel Taberner's favor, who we saw stay out and has been leading by a little bit more than 8 seconds. Of course, not the real gap. They still need to filter in for a pit stop, and that's going to be throwing things kind of in a bit of a large question mark right now, because we don't know where Taberner's going to filter out to. Currently losing a little bit of time to the cars behind as well, so maybe even throwing some traffic in. It looks like that gap could change significantly.
I mean, I said this once, and I'm gonna say it again. I really feel for the stewards tonight. They are gonna have a field day with how many reports might be coming up. I'd say around the 20s. They're gonna be spending hours in the stewards office determining all those incidents, and yeah, that recent incident just adds to that mess.
Yeah, a little bit of a replay here. This is the 69 that we saw fighting with Renfield, going into turn 2, hard on the brakes, bringing the car over on the outside, back up to the inside, cleanly through into 3 and 4, but major contact that spins the 69 there, stops them in the middle of the track, and that's a dangerous spot for Dalton to have been parked. Of course, I believe they were able to get it recovered from there, but still very, very sketchy for any cars coming in. And Elias Flynn now pushing up with some of the other cars. I believe that is Gordon directly in front And that is going to be a move up to the inside of Sunset. Very dangerous move if you can't get it stuck, but it looks like Elias Flynn able to filter their way directly in front as we get set up for turn 7 of Clubhouse, as Elias is able to make it stick. The BMW now pressing up to the rear, and it looks like Blade Wolf Kagakio also on the other part of the grid, the 142 fighting Parker Olsen. Looks like there's a possible opportunity for the Aston Martin through the upper parts of the grid. That's actually going to filter out, I believe, for an opportunity at the silver podium.
Yeah, this is a diamond in the rough with Flynn overtaking Gordon. A clean, very well executed pass. I mean, these drivers have really got to chill. The safety shark demands it. As we see Blade Wolf Kagakio going down the inside of Parker Olsen. Will it go into Kagakio's hands? Not quite, as Olsen hangs around the outside and stays ahead. But that number 142 Aston Martin still on that rear end of the red-colored Taegang Racing number 74 McLaren. I feel like Kagakio is getting really impatient because this could be for the silver class podium.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the fringes of that silver podium. Possible opportunity. Of course, they still need to get up and past Sadket if they're going to make that silver podium stick, but we've seen crazier things happen. We've seen crazier things happen in this race even. So Blade Wolf Kagakio needing to sneak past that McLaren of Parker Olsen. And of course, we see a couple of our other drivers finishing up their pit stops. George Chouami just snuck into the pits as Blade Wolf Kagakio sneaks by. I believe that's Lee Hamster, the number 20. Going to be slowing up for these cars on the on the inside line there, but Blade Wolf Kagakio is not blinking for more than a moment, really trying to chase down Parker Olsen as we head down to the Crocodiles and setting up for a move, but not able to make anything stick there. Parker Olsen very deep and committed on the brakes, able to get it stuck onto the apex there, and the 142 having to wait maybe a little bit longer as we roll through. Looking at our pit stops, Lee, the number 20, needing to get a pit stop. We also need Daniel Taberner, Nicholas Zahn, Louis Carlisle, Jesper Swingley, and Sierra Thomas also need to all come in. So we have quite a few drivers in this lead group here. Pretty much everyone from P6 up except for Vossi have served a pit or need to serve a pit stop. So we're going to see a major shakeup, and I think Vossi is actually in the pits right now, which is why they are being tabbed as not needing a pit stop here. So looking like a couple of our drivers are going to be filtering out into their true positions here. Everyone from P7 down has served their pit stop, and it looks like Kyalami still leading that group here, chased by Clifton Clippert, and Jesper Swingley has now moved their way into the pits here. So we will see where the 279 is able to filter out one of our fastest cars out here on the grid, just needing to keep their nose clean and possibly maybe a little bit of lost time for some damage repair as Kyalami now sneaks past, I believe, one of the other Racing Team Echo Mustangs that is directly behind them. I did not catch who that was, but a very, very tricky moment for Kyalami, especially after we had that contact early in the race that did pull them out of the lead.
I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what the drivers that are still staying out are going to commit to. Will they stay until the very tail end of that pit window? Because by then you would have the freshest tires. The only problem is warm up, because this track is just, it's dark, it's cold, it's not what you want if you want pace as soon as possible. But we have Vossi Tigris driving out a pit lane, and unfortunately it's behind a back marker, which will make their life worse.
Absolutely. Daniel Taverner, who is our race leader, currently sitting at quite a comfortable gap, 8 seconds, almost 9 seconds to the car behind. Of course, they still need to service their pit stop. We did see the Delta sitting at about 45 seconds for a pit stop loss. To Kyalami, they have 49 seconds, so currently sitting to project about a 4-second gap as they roll out of the pits. Of course, any damage repairs or other ancillary equipment changes that they need to do, suspension, body work, or just maybe a poor stop, could cost them that lead still. So Daniel Taverner needs to keep the pedal to the metal here, really stay on top of that Lamborghini as they throw it around barbecue. It is such a beautiful thing to see the V10 of that Lamborghini roaring around this circuit, and how it slides to the corner beautifully through Sunset, just getting tipped up onto that outside corner of the car, a little bit of bouncing through the bumps. And while the 83 looks like they have this car fully in control of the race, but actually a touch wide there.
Speak of the
Of course,
devil.
commentators curse throwing 2 tires wide. Won't have been much for Daniel Taverner, maybe just a little bit of a scare, but keeping that Lamborghini ahead. And of course, finally, things have calmed down just a little bit. We do still have maybe a battle with the 142 and the 74 down further down the grid. That is Kagakio, who we saw trying to chase down Parker Olsen. Of course, they need to get past Parker and get up to fight Jesper Swingley. And a moment for Fluffy White Point, the 39, who had a bit of a spin, I think, in barbecue there as you get back up to speed for Sunset Bend. Of course, we've seen this corner bite quite a few people here, going a little bit deep. The curbs on either side of this right-left, very, very dangerous. And I think it's going to be that left-hand curb. Yep, absolutely. Pushed you wide, and then rear tire, loaded tire on that grass on the outside. Just too dangerous to keep the car straight. Too little grip, and it just spins it right around.
Yeah, that sausage curve can kill. It's very lethal, as we see Bladewell Kagakio still trying to get past Parker Olsen, but not quite. I did want to say Daniel Taverner really has to let that V10 engine roar, because the overcut is going to really help him on their fight against Kyalami. Looking back into Kagakio, I think Olsen's just getting quicker, and they're just losing time. So Kagakio might as well have to resort to the toe if Olsen's just going to run away like that.
Yeah, but we've seen the mistakes, the incidents. Of course, there's a car directly ahead of Olsen as well. Granted, traffic in between them at the moment. Jesper Swingley, though, is only 2 seconds down the road. That portion, the foreground that you just saw sneak by, is directly for position here. And of course, if we get past, or if Parker gets past Jesper there, it is going to be a very, very tense moment, because Bladewell Kagakio is going to try to sneak through. Sierra Thomas now in for their pit stop. This is one of the last drivers that has to serve their pit stop, as well as we are going to see Nicholas Zahn and Daniel Taverner come in the next lap at most for their pit service, as they are obviously obliged to do. But Nicholas on there directly behind, I believe that is Orez Volpez, who I don't think actually repaired that damage on the front end of that Lamborghini, electing to fight through the pain that loss of front downforce is going to cause. And while they're under pressure and blue flags from Nicholas on there as they roll through Cheetah. Luke Packer here looks like they are also finally putting pressure onto Louis Carlisle, our basically super national. I believe it's probably the best term for them, who has moved their way all the ways up to P6. The 935's kept their nose very clean, and that GTR is screaming through Sunset, but under significant pressure from the BMW of Luke Packer directly behind. So this could be an interesting moment as we get the front engine Godzilla versus the new age performance from that BMW M4, and Luke Packer looking like they have the upper hand at this moment.
Yeah, but all things considered, that's a very impressive debut from Mirski Lowy Carlisle in that pink-colored Tig Gang Racing GTR. Keep in mind, this is their first race here in the Simufur grid, and they are already blending in with the competition. So huge kudos to them, as we see Daniel Taverner, who has just made their pit stop and is coming out. I believe they are gonna be ahead of Kyalami for this, but it's going to be quite close. But yep, that is definitely going into Taverner's way, because Dalton is just ahead of Mooney.
Yeah, and it looks like that gap has finally settled down. Nicholas Zahn able to sneak their way out, and it looks like they will settle in that P3 window as well. So currently our podium sitting as Daniel Taverner, Kyalami, and Nicholas Zahn sitting up in those podium positions. Vossi Tigris and Christian Klippert putting on a good show as they try to chase back up to that podium position. And Luke Packer is chasing down Lohi Karwala is through this first sector here. Luke Packer is maybe lost a little bit of time here. I think Carla has managed to open up that gap a little bit more as we move down into Sunset, so that Nissan may be a little bit kinder on its tires, may be able to just open up that gap a touch more. So I think we could see an opportunity here for Carla to open up that gap maybe a little bit more, but I do see traffic directly ahead. The Mustang, believe that is Wolfen that is in front and is struggling to keep that pace up. Might back up Lohi into Luke Packer here. Looks like they're letting them by. Are they going to stay out of the way of Luke Packer as well? So yes, through Luke Hulp, it is going to be a clean run down for Luke Packer. That's Wolfen, who is obliged to those blue flags very nicely and managed to stay out of the way, not impede anyone very well. But a couple of our drivers, you see chaos coming through the third sector. It is just one car after the next every second. Our spectators must be thoroughly entertained because there is no gap in the action for any of these cars.
You just really have to be patient around these guys. But Wolfen here, I mean, he's just focusing on his own race, I assume. Like, yeah, because at this point, it's just to settle in and just keep that position. Because at the moment, I believe they are in, I believe 1, 2, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're P8, so it's a pretty decent spot for an AM class driver. It's pretty decent points for Wolfen Ravenloft of Blue Shark E-Racing in that Mustang.
Yeah, very much so. And actually, going back through the grid here, aside from our top 2 positions, everyone with significant position changes. Nicholas Zahn's up 4 positions. Vasi Tigris up 5. Loey Carla is also up 4 on their own from the very impressive qualifying of P10 from that 935. And while they're now trying to hang on to P6, very, very impressive from them. Some of our other drivers, JPEG Fox, who we haven't mentioned, up 10 positions, who has done a very, very good job for themselves through this race. But it's a tricky situation. Of course, 20 minutes left here, 18 minutes left. So our drivers still do need to pilot through the horrors and terrors of these curbs in the night, maybe looking for some kind of jump scare as they hit those apexes, maybe a little bit too wrong. But Parker Olsen, as we saw, who was under pressure from Blade Wolf Kagakio, has finally managed to open that gap up there, now putting progress into Jesper Swingley, but I don't think it's going to be significant enough. Jesper Swingley has shown very good pace here, so while that gap might have closed up just a tiny bit, it does look like Parker is struggling to get it to close fast enough.
At the moment, it's Oliver, as we look over to Oliver Renfield, who is currently, I believe, a little bit down on Ravenloft, but I believe the grid at the moment is settling down from all that chaos, the mayhem just dying down as these drivers just focus on finishing this race. I mean, we have the likes of Taverner, who's way ahead of Mooney, may I add, 5 seconds down the road. So I think they're in a comfortable position. They're just driving it out as we see German Dalton laying by, and then oh no, that's the 6-7 of Snowdog. I think that's Cheetah.
I think we might be close to that. Yes, this is the final corner there. You can see those brake marker boards on the outside, so a good chance that we lost the 67 Porsche to Cheetah curb here. So we roll through an overtake coming into turn 2. That is going to be Christian Clipper looking for a move onto one of the Mustangs here. So that's going to be the 6-9, I believe that is Dalton coming through. So able to move up. And that's one of the blue flags cars. So Christian Clipper having to fight a decent bit to get past one of the lower class cars. They didn't defend, so still well within their rules. But of course, that's going to cost a decent bit of time of Christian to catch back up to Vasi Tigris, but that gap about 6 seconds, it is quite large right now. And then this is going to be, I believe, Snowdog clipping the inside of the Cheetah curb. Yeah, a little bit too ambitious, barely too far to the inside, just barely rolled up the inside of that tire over the inside of that yellow sausage curb, and unfortunately it's just too much for the 67 to handle, and that Porsche goes around into the dirt. Fortunately stays out of the wall, keeps the car alive, but that shows how quickly it can go wrong. One lapse, especially through such a dangerous corner as Cheetah, and that can really throw your whole race astray, as we see Blade Wolf testing fate with a little bit of clip on Cheetah curb while they chase down Parker Olsen.
I do wonder though, how many victims has the Cheetah curb claim? I mean, we do have some caught in the broadcast, but there may be some that weren't in the broadcast. So I mean, so if you've seen someone that got clipped by Cheetah, by all means, I hope that adds to count. As you see, oh, Luke Packer slamming. That was a slam into the Mustang, and oh, that's just really close. But yeah, not the thing you want here.
No, especially now when Luke Packer was chasing down Louis Carvala, who is really starting to fall back. But I think that might have upset Luke Packer's rhythm a little bit. So that could be a little bit of a damage for the 286, and that could cause some problems later down the line. But it does look like the pace is still there for Luke, and it looks like they're able to chase down the 935, but Parker Olsen currently still being chased down by Blade Wolf Kagekio directly behind, and also directly in front of them, Sauce Dragon is looking like they're trying to put a move onto Sadcat, who is now falling back. That Lamborghini struggling for pace a little bit right now, and that's going to open up the window for the 73 through to the inside of Crocodiles, and that could really be a big move for the 73. Not able to get it all the way down to the apex, but now traffic around Cheetah Curb. Is that going to be an opportunity for Sauce, who's looking around the outside, setting up a possible run? Sadcat not able to find a way around here, so this could back up all this traffic here. Jesper Swingley's now managed to get their way up into this fight, so a lot of time loss from, I believe that's the 69 Mustang, that is compressed P8 and P10, and that's going to bring a huge battle back into Sadcat's hands, who now has to try to find a way to open this gap back up under immense pressure from Sosh and from Swingley.
Yeah, that was a brave move, and there was contact with, I think that's Swingley and the number 69 of Dalton. Oh, that's just really unfortunate. Swingley was oh so close to getting to that fight, but I think, yeah, that's just really unfortunate. And we do have a 4-course yellow, as to what I'm hearing from the race control broadcast.
So a full course yellow offers the drivers a chance to reset, prevent any track blockages. Of course, this is similar to the code 60s that you would see in the DNLS series. All of our drivers on their pit limiter, 50 km/h limited to pit speed, while the race officials allow our drivers time to recover. Keeps everyone safe from coming in to a dangerous incident, which is very necessary as we roll into the night here. I believe we have been fully released from this full course yellow now as our drivers get back up to speed and everything has been cleared out. But Jesper Swingley suffering quite significantly from that incident. Blade Wolf Kagekio actually managing to sneak by alongside Parker Olsen. So Jesper with even more work to do for a race that has had so much promise for them. They've had so much pace. Unfortunately, it just hasn't come together. Too many incidents. Sierra Thomas now chasing down the Bentley of Elias Flynn, so it could be a big opportunity as we head through Barbecue, getting set up into Sunset Corner here, turn 6. This is a high commitment corner once again as we see the 42 trying to chase back up to that Bentley, but a little bit wide there, might offer an opportunity for the Lamborghini to close back up. So big pressure from Sierra to kind of keep this pace up. That is not a battle for position directly behind them. So there is still a bit of margin as they are focused on the car ahead. Elias Flynn is directly on track for position with them. And that's the 77 Elias Flynn has been kind of up and down throughout the grid, seeing a lot of action around them. But are they going to be able to hold true to this pressure from Sierra Thomas directly behind?
I believe so. Elias Flynn, very solid driver, and it's doing quite well to make that Bentley as wide as it can. I mean, the Bentley is already a wide car in its own right, so so Flynn has a lot. Flynn has a lot in his hands to keep Sierra Thomas right behind for some scraps in the silver class points.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how they're able to hang on to this, because the gap's kind of ebbing and flowing a decent bit with the traffic and where our drivers are able to maximize their time. The closest battle kind of sits around here. Of course, actually, we have some other drivers too. The 529's under pressure from White Point as well. I think they were able to just sneak by. I think White Point had a bit of an incident as well. So this is the fastest or closest true battle on track here, as Leon Van Steen is letting by, I believe that is Vossi Tigris who snuck by through the final corner there, just making sure that they're leaving ample space through that final corner as Vossi is on their march up to Nicholas Zahn here, but about 4 seconds to close with 10 minutes left as George Surami is now trying to make a move on one of the lap cars again. I believe this is the 69 of Dalton. So George trying to make a charge up as well through, I believe they're looking at maybe an insurmountable gap to Swingley. If they're able to keep it clean, maybe a position comes to them. But 15 seconds and 10 minutes might be a little bit too much to ask for the 212 Porsche.
I mean, the grid is just mellowing down. I hope, again, this stays for now, because at the moment, you bumps along the way. So hopefully these races wrap up in the final sector, as we see I believe that is Benavides letting by some back markers. So and that is Sadcat pointing the wrong way around. You can't park there, mate. That's another change in the silver class position, and that is Blade Wolf Kagekio back in the lead of the silver class.
As a huge change for the silver class. We had Blade Wolf Kagekio, who we talked about earlier, looking like they might have been completely out of the silver podium, is now looking like they are going to win this silver class because of an incident coming through. So this is Sadcat coming through the turn 3, turn 4 sequence. Card looked a little bit unstable through that right-hander, and just too deep, too much adhesion, or too much ambition before adhesion, as Brundle would say, coming through turn 5. A lot of instability from that Lamborghini, known for being a bit of a widowmaker, and that's going to have spun around Sadcat out of the lead. Jesper Swingley, after the chaos of their race, has actually stuck back up to P2 because of that in the silver class, and now Blade Wolf Kagekio now has to hold this safe for another 8 minutes, and they might be able to secure this silver class win. And of course, maybe a very unexpected result considering where the start of this race began.
I mean, Blade Wolf, the king of consistencies, and also a great defense. So Jesper Swingley has some huge competition to tend with. The Porsche has pace, but can they get past the number 142 Aston Martin?
Absolutely, and we were on board there with JPEG and Elias Flynn and Sierra Thomas, who are looking like they have a battle on their hands. The gap sitting all three of these drivers covered by 1.1 seconds. So that Aston Martin leading of JPEG Fox not able to get away as Elias Flynn. And then we talked about Sierra Thomas earlier, who really closed up that gap, is sandwiching this pack together here. This is the battle for P15, but also, more importantly, this is the final spot on the M-Class podium for our this is for the second step of the M-Class podium when you take into account Louis Carlos' national status here. So this is a very big points-paying position for our three drivers. JPEG Fox defensive through that entire first sector, a little bit wide as we head through barbecue. That's going to open up the window for Elias Flynn to sneak through here, although that is in the silver class here, so not the most important battle for JPEG Fox. That actually is back for Sierra Thomas in the background there, who is trying to get past for the direct battle for position with the Elias Flynn, who is also another silver class driver. So those two drivers trying to push up, directly fighting for position in class. JPEG Fox is the AM driver sandwiched inside of this battle, kind of just trying to run their own race. Of course, the overall positions matter to all of our drivers, but within the class battles, this is not the most major thing between JPEG and Sierra, but Sierra needs to get past if they're going to put this move onto the 77.
That was a really bold move from Elias Flynn. The over-under, getting that exit and just running past that Aston Martin. That was a great move, and that's the move that Flynn needs to get past Sierra, because now JPEG Fox is the buffer in the middle between these two cars, and that will buy Flynn more time. And was that someone going off with Cheetah? Am I going crazy?
I thought I saw taillights trail off into the gravel, but I do see there was a possible opportunity there for Sierra to sneak past the JPEG Fox. It looked like JPEG was a little bit wide, so Sierra may be able to put together an exit as one car is coming out of the pits there. I believe that's the Porsche von Steyen, who is coming out directly into this battle here. Sierra Thomas not able to close up enough to put a send onto JPEG Fox, but we saw where JPEG struggled with a possible little bit of a dive coming in from Sierra Thomas, just showing their nose, but not fully committing, just trying to throw JPEG off their line there. really unsettling. They're focused to just focus on the lap ahead. But we're gonna take a look a replay here, possibly one of the incidents further back. I believe that is the Aston Martin of Hamster, the number 20, coming through a mine shaft. So, ooh, a big moment
Oh
coming
my
down the hill.
goodness.
Big strike on the curb. Very, very easy corner to mess up if you get too greedy on that inside curb there. So an innocent mistake coming in from them, able to keep it safe from everyone else. But actually looking further up the grid, the 142 and Jesper Swingley, the 279, is looking like there's an opportunity to take this battle for the silver win. We know the pace that Jesper has, but Blade Wolf is going to fight for their life to hold on to this position. The 279 trying for around the outside. Blade Wolf able to get that car stuck on the inside, but right onto the rear bumper is the Porsche, trying to make a move down into barbecue, unable to make it stick. Blade Wolf maybe a touch wide. Jesper using the traction advantage that the Porsche has, being shown the outside of Sunset. It would be a brave move to send it around the outside here, but Jesper's gonna try it as we move around the outside in the clubhouse. Blade Wolf will shut that down. Up into turn 7, is able to make it stick. Safe possibly through the S's. Jesper, yes, not able to get the exit, but there's still another heavy braking zone coming through. It looks like Blade Wolf struggling on the front end a little bit more. Jesper setting up for a over-under, getting the better exit up to Lukop. Blade Wolf taking the inside defensive line that will set them up. Jesper trying to sneak over, under, early on power, trying to get the run through, but I think Blade Wolf just able to stretch that gap just a touch more and relax for just a minute.
What did I tell you? Blade Wolf, another masterclass of defense. He was defending Jesper Swingley with his life. That was the whole, that is practically the whole lap of the circuit. They've been defending and making that Aston Martin as wide as it can be.
Yeah, as we roll through the final corner, it looks like Jesper trying to move around the outside. The 142 having to take a little bit narrower line. That's going to give the overall momentum advantage to the 279. Is it going to be an opportunity for Jesper? That Aston Martin is good on top end speed, but of course this Porsche has an advantage in the low speed. Hard on the brakes into turn 2. Held tight on the inside line is the Aston Martin of Blade Wolf. Jesper trying to get an over under, not able to get the overlap through turn 2, through 3, through 4. Could it be ascend into turn 5? No, Jesper electing to get the exit on the backside of the corner, but Blade Wolf able to hold it strong, coming on the outside of the corner and into turn 5. It looks like another defensive line holding off Jesper Swingley. Jesper just filling the rear view mirrors, the wing mirrors, the wing even on the back of that car. Into turn 7, Jesper trying once again for another over under, but Blade Wolf able to manage the traction once again through the S's.
I am at the edge of my seat right now. This is this is just so hard to watch. Blade Wolf defending throughout all the corners, lap after lap, just parking the car where it needs to be. That's just absolute perfection in the defensive driving of Kagakiyo. That's what, again, I'm saying this again. Blade Wolf Kagakiyo is a hard driver to get past. He will defend with all his life if he has to, and it's showing that right now with Jesper Swingley.
Yes, and we know the pace advantage that Jesper has as they look to get around the outside, but going through Crocodiles, the move isn't there. Having to once again file through Cheetah. It's a tricky corner directly behind someone. A big slide from Jesper Swingley, able to keep it collected, but Blade Wolf Kagakiyo opens up that gap just a little bit more. Coming through that final corner, we're going to get a run down the main straight, and that Porsche's proven to be a little bit more slippery than that Aston Martin. The Aston's proven to have actually a little bit of a traction advantage. No move on now into turn 2, but we're going to see that Porsche once again climb all the ways back underneath the brakes. Jesper pushing everything that German machine has as Blade Wolf tries to get the Aston to file through into barbecue, and look at that gap. 0.5 of a second already disappeared to 0.2. Running through to Sunset. Another defensive line from Blade Wolf. Will they keep it tight? They will. That's going to open up the window for Jesper to try to sneak through. Closed on the outside. It doesn't look like the move is on. And once again, Blade Wolf is driving the dead center of the track, not offering any opportunities for Jesper to make a move anywhere else. through the S's. Again, somewhere the Porsches seemed so brilliant through. It looks like it's going to be able to get something move. Jesper is looking to the inside, forcing Blade Wolf to the inside line here. Harden the brakes on
He's wrapping around the outside, and it's too wide! Oh my goodness, Jesper Zwingli tried to wrap around the outside, but overshot the braking point. And I think that is game, set, match for Blade Wolf Kagakiyo, unless Jesper Zwingli can catch up. But with that gap, I think it's highly unlikely, because there is one lap to go for these guys.
His final lap for every driver as they cross the line. The gaps remain quite large for Daniel Tabiner, but Oliver Renfield now trying to put the pressure on the Wolfen, who's really hustling that Mustang through. Maybe a move to Cheetah. No, that would be a very brave move, but unsettling the line that is put off the Wolfen. Oliver trying to make a move around the outside on the second to last lap here, but also Sadka tries to toot their nose and backs off, allows this battle to continue, but it looks like Wolfen didn't get the best run coming out. That's going to be an opportunity going into turn 2. Possible chance for a dive here. The 529 moving all the way to the inside. Hard on the brakes. Not going to full commit to that defensive line. Trying to leave it open so they can get a better run here. And that's going to put the 65 in a bit of a spot of bother because they can't get the move. They only had 2 real opportunities through the rest of this lap.
That's wide!
But it's going to be wide. Daniel Tabiner wide through the finish because they're going to take P1. The 83 with a brilliant drive. 12 and a half seconds of drift of the next car, Calhoun Mooney, the Team Echo car, but Wolf and Ravenloft has been passed by in the sunset, as I believe that was Redfield able to sneak their way past through barbecue into sunset with a better run. So the 65 with a brilliant final lap pass.
My goodness, again, Jesper Swilling getting close, but I don't think it's quite enough to get past Blade Wolf. I think Blade Wolf has the win in Silver Class game set match, but he just has one more section to go through. But Oliver Renfield, that was a pretty brave move. Unfortunately, Wolfen going really wide and just leaving the door open for the 65 Mustang.
Yeah, and it was maybe a big move for Jesper at the end. No, maybe pressuring Blade Wolf. Was it too wide? Is Jesper able to get the run? It's a drag race to the end, but Blade Wolf was able to get the power down, and that Aston's going to charge its way to the Silver Class win, the 142. Able to sneak their way back in front, and looking further down the grid, George Suarmi, who the 212 still needing to filter their way through. Oh, what a big off in the background!
Goodness.
I think that was George Suarmi who had a big moment through Cheetah Curve. That was our AM-class leader who was able to keep it out of the wall in a very, very scary moment to finish the race here. They'll be able to pilot it through, but Cheetah Curve. We've talked about how dangerous it was. It needed one more bite of the cherry following through the Ferrari, and a big touch of the apex curve at Cheetah.
That was the most violent one yet. But I mean, it's a good thing for Sarami because it's a good thing that Sarami's like way ahead of the other AM drivers, so not all is lost. But my goodness, what a race we had. Utter chaos, utter drama. It had all the highs and lows that you would expect in such an action-packed race.
Absolutely, it was a very, very chaotic race that Survival proved to dictate many of the positions in this event. What an exciting event it was, though. Of course, in the background, take a look at our beautiful billboard. We paid good money for the real estate in the final corner here at Kyalami Circuit, but of course, you can show your support through our Patreon and get early access to some of our announcements and other kind of inside info, some big announcements to come through there. So an early look is always appreciated through our Patreon. Of course, it has been an exciting race in Kyalami. We have 4 more events to go, taking a 1-week break as we finish up here in South Africa. We'll be moving on over to Spielberg in the Red Bull Ring in 2 weeks' time, February 15th. Take a look through our schedule. Join our Discord to join up for our races, and we will be happy to provide some more extremely exciting races. Until then, this has been Jordan Johnson. Of course, my co-commentator, Suzuka. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. And have a good night.
See ya.